It's 7:18 a.m. You tap your card against the reader. A sharp red light, a single beep. The queue behind you shifts. Someone clears their throat. The barista glances up, then away, then back at the machine, as if the machine might change its mind. The coffee is still there. Steam still rising from the cup. Your hand is still on the counter. Nothing physical has changed, and yet something has been taken from you in front of 5 strangers. That feeling is older than money, older than coins, older than the word for owing. And this morning, in a room with no danger, your body just proved it. So why does a 30,000-year-old fear system light up over a $4 coffee? Let's rewind further than you think. Because the machine didn't reject the coffee. The coffee was fine. The milk was fine. Your hand was fine. What the machine rejected was something invisible, a claim stored somewhere else that you had the right to walk out with that cup. And when that claim failed, your body didn't react to a banking inconvenience. It reacted to something much older, the public discovery that the group would not honor your request. Picture a camp, tens of thousands of years ago. A hunter walks back with meat across his shoulders. He is tired, he is proud. But the meat is not simply his. Before he eats, before his children eat, the group watches how it is divided. Faces turn, names are spoken. Someone remembers who helped last week. Someone remembers who took too much last month. And somewhere in that circle stands a person waiting to see if their portion will be handed over, or quietly skipped. The food is real. The permission is invisible. That, at its root, is what a card reader is doing. It is asking the same question your ancestors asked at every carcass, every water source, every shared fire. Will the group recognize my claim? The strange part is what happens next. Anthropologists who spent decades with the Hadza in Tanzania, the hoansi in the Kalahari, the Ake in Paraguay, kept noticing the same thing. In small mobile communities, exchange rarely looks like the marketplace we imagine. Nobody trades a fish for a pair of shoes. Nobody prices a hand of meat. Instead, food, tools, childcare, protection, they move through relationships, slowly, unevenly. Sometimes with a delay of months. Sometimes with a return that doesn't look like a return at all. A hunter fails for a week. His children still eat. Not because he traded for the food, but because someone remembers when he shared. Later, his wife watches another woman's child while that woman is sick. No one calls it repayment. But it is. Before wealth was stored in objects, it was stored in people. The hoansi even had a name for it, hxaro. A gift relationship that stretched across the desert. You gave a shell, a bead, a knife to someone you might not see again for a year. The point was not the object. The point was that if your water hole ever dried up, if your camp ever collapsed, there was someone hundreds of kilometers away who remembered your name. Memory was the first place humans stored debt. And this is where the story most of us learned falls apart. You've probably heard it. Somewhere, someone had fish and someone else had shoes, and neither wanted what the other had, so, clever creatures that we are, we invented money to fix the inconvenience. It's a clean story. It's also, largely, wrong. Anthropologists have looked for that pure barter world for over a century and struggled to find it. Barter existed, yes, usually between strangers, between hostile groups, or when a currency system had just collapsed. But inside communities, people didn't haggle every transaction. They extended credit, they shared, they remembered. The problem money eventually solved was not that a fisherman couldn't find a cobbler. The problem was that human memory has a ceiling, and once you cross it, trust needs somewhere else to live. Which brings us into a very dusty room. Imagine standing at the entrance of a Mesopotamian storehouse, roughly 5,000 years ago. The air is thick with barley dust and the sour smell of fermenting grain. Reed baskets arrive in a slow line. A donkey brays somewhere behind you. And there, near the doorway, a man sits with a lump of wet clay in one hand and a sharpened reed in the other. He presses tiny marks into the clay. A number, a name, a quantity, a seal rolled across the surface with a faint, gritty scrape. That tablet is not literature. It is not a prayer. It is not a king's boast. It is a receipt. Some of the oldest surviving writing on Earth is, essentially, accounting. Barley in, barley out, rations distributed, loans repaid, silver owed, witnesses named. When I first read this, I had to sit with it for a while. Because it means writing itself, one of the defining leaps of our species, may have been invented not to tell stories, not to praise gods, but to remember who owed what. The harvest had simply grown too large for any one mind, and once memory left the human head, something strange happened. The record became more powerful than the person. Picture a builder, back sore, palms cracked, standing outside that same storehouse days later. He wants his ration. The scribe checks the tablet. The tablet says the ration was already collected. The grain is right there, behind the wall. He can smell it, he helped haul it in. But the mark says no, and the mark wins. The grain was physical, the claim was information. You have felt a shadow of this. A database says the payment cleared when it didn't. A system says your hours weren't logged. A record contradicts what your body remembers. That flicker of powerlessness, the sense that a machine has overruled your own life, is not new. It began the moment memory moved from us into something we could carry, break, forge, or lose. But here is where the story gets stranger than a textbook ever tells you. Coins came late, very late. The first recognizable coins, small lumps of electrum in western Anatolia, appear somewhere near the end of the 7th century BCE. That is thousands of years after those Mesopotamian tablets were already tracking barley and silver and debt. Which means the first money was not something you could bite. It was something you could read. A debt could be measured in silver and paid in barley. A shell could settle a marriage but never buy bread. A cow could store a family's wealth for years but couldn't be split in half at the market. Grain could pay a wage. Metal could weigh a promise. Tokens sealed inside a clay envelope could stand in for cattle no one in the room had ever seen. Money existed before people could carry it. A coin, when it finally arrived, didn't invent value, it compressed an agreement. It packed the weight, the measure, the seal, the witness, the authority, all of it, into something small enough to slip into a pouch. And to make that agreement survive across strangers, across generations, across cities that had never met, humans built something quietly astonishing. A tiny stone cylinder, carved with an image, rolled across wet clay, could speak for a person who wasn't there. A standardized weight in one city could be trusted in another. A witness's name, pressed into a tablet, could outlive the witness. Bureaucracy, the word we now use like an insult, began as a survival technology. It was the moment humans converted reputation into something portable, something forgery-proof, something almost digital. The seal was the first password. But every technology has a shadow, and the shadow of durable memory is durable debt. Imagine a family, 4,000 years ago, watching the sky. The clouds pass, no rain falls. The stalks in their field bend and dry. They borrowed seed before planting, witnessed, sealed, recorded. That record does not care about the sky. When the creditor's man arrives, the livestock go first, then the tools, then, in some periods, a son or a daughter into bonded labor to settle what the clay still remembers. The rain forgot to fall. The tablet did not forget the debt. Ancient rulers, more than once, had to cancel debts across entire cities, not out of kindness, but because unpaid obligations were destabilizing everything. The precision that had saved memory could also preserve injustice. A record can be perfectly accurate and completely blind to reality. Somewhere inside you, this is still running. It is why an unopened envelope on the kitchen table can make your chest tighten before you've even read it. Why a notification from a bank feels like a verdict. Why debt, in almost every language we've ever recorded, sounds like a moral failing rather than a mathematical fact. The number outlives the storm that caused it. And this is where it gets personal, because you, right now, are still keeping a ledger, not a clay one, not even a bank one, an older one. You track who paid last time at dinner, who visited when you were sick, who took credit for your work, who never says thank you, who owes you a favor they'll never name out loud. You feel it when a gift is too expensive. You feel it when someone repays you too fast, as if closing an account you thought was a friendship. Money did not erase that ledger. It added a second one beside it, faster, more precise, more public, and made you believe the two were separate. They aren't. When you check your balance late at night, you are not really counting dollars. You are counting how many days of rent are safe, how many times you could say no to a job that hurts you, how long you could survive an illness, how many refusals you could absorb before you had to ask someone, a parent, a partner, a stranger, for help. A bank balance is stored social permission. It is the modern shape of a very old question. How many times can I be told no before I have nowhere left to turn? That's why a declined card at 7:18 a.m. doesn't feel like a glitch. It feels like exposure. I think about this every time I watch someone hesitate at a checkout. There's one more twist, though, because money, for all it gave us, took something quietly in return. A gift keeps a relationship open. A payment closes it. When you buy coffee from a stranger, you owe them nothing afterward. That is a miracle. Billions of humans cooperating without ever knowing each other's faces. It is also a kind of loneliness. A researcher followed the Jew hoansi for 44 years as cash slowly entered their world. The old gift networks narrowed, material inequality grew, and yet, and this matters, much of their social equality survived. Cash changed the shape of the relationships. It did not erase them. Money connects billions of strangers by allowing them to remain strangers. Which means every time your card taps and the light turns green, 1,000 invisible people are held together for a fraction of a second. The farmer, the driver, the technician who keeps the payment network alive, the clerk at a bank across an ocean, the laws that say the transfer counts. None of them are in the room. All of them are in the transaction. The record remembers the amount. It doesn't remember the hunger. It doesn't remember the care. It doesn't remember whether the price was fair, or who worked through the night, or who was never paid at all. So go back to that morning, the red light, the queue, the coffee steaming untouched. It felt like a small humiliation, but it was really a very old alarm, one your species has been carrying since long before there were cards, or coins, or clay. The alarm asks the same thing it has always asked: will the group recognize my claim? Next time the light turns green, notice what actually moved. Not the coffee, not the coin, only an ancient promise between strangers, pressed once into wet clay, now humming quietly through a wire. Humans didn't invent money in a single moment. They invented, slowly, over thousands of years, a way for the future to remember what was owed. And we are still, every one of us, deciding what the future should refuse to forget. You've been carrying this longer than you realize.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to BackTimes, hit the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves history.